Here we are. It's Thursday. Let's do some reminiscing.
Sounds good to me.
Last time we were talking about older games, and we kind of started talking about PlayStation games and really just that time period of what we were playing. We both have played a PlayStation. I mean, like getting into the PlayStation, I don't want to talk about the game that I want to talk about yet because that was the first PlayStation game that I played. But I think you can't talk about the PlayStation without talking about Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, I think for me, that's kind of the poster boy, the introduction for a lot of people that played PlayStation 1 was Crash Bandicoot. You know, we kind of talked about it on the last podcast, but the way that I got introduced to Crash Bandicoot was by renting it. I hadn't purchased the game, I rented the game, and it was one of those where it's like, okay, I'll just do one more level, and then I'm done, you know, and then I'll be done for the night or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's the middle of the night, you know, and you're getting in trouble because your parents are coming in the room, and it's like, oh, sorry, turn it off. Yeah, that to me was the perfect introduction to PlayStation was Crash Bandicoot.
Talking about getting caught playing the PlayStation at night. I mean, that was us all the time. Crash, yeah, man, the sound effects in Crash Bandicoot, in the spin move.
Yeah.
Like, I think I still make that noise in my head. I just loved that game. I'm pretty sure we played that on a demo first, which weird to say because I think that was kind of like their flagship mascot. And I'm sitting there playing Crash Bandicoot going, okay, this is PlayStation's Mario, I guess. And to me, that game was incredible. Like, I had so much fun playing that game. You hear people talk about that game now, they're like, it wasn't that good. The design was terrible. Like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yo, it was 3D, man.
I think a lot of games back at that time had that you know, you're gonna play through a level, play a boss, and then you come back to the hub world and you go to the next thing. But I don't know what it was. It was just so addicting, man. I just wanted to, you know, you go through the first time, then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to get all the boxes this time. Then you go through it. Then it was like, okay, I'll do the time attack. You know, you just kept going through it and doing the same levels over and over again until, you know, you had them mastered. It was amazing.
Well, that's just the simplicity of the gameplay. That was the first game I really cared about collecting everything. Like, I played Donkey Kong Country when it came out, you know, and I just didn't care about collecting all the letters and the bananas. Like, I didn't care about the kid, but for some reason in Crash Bandicoot, I was like, I'm going to get every single one of these apples.
Donkey Kong was fun, right? I think that's kind of the poster, like, you know, the sign of Nintendo is you're going to have fun when you play a Nintendo game. I think the thing that was the word for PlayStation was it's going to be cool. So Crash Bandicoot, yeah, you're going to collect boxes and all of that stuff, but you're going to do it riding a motorcycle or, you know, being chased by a dinosaur or, you know, you know what I mean? We're ripping off Indiana Jones, but instead of it being a boulder, it's going to be, you know, a dinosaur level or something like that.
You know, I don't know how many times people have made that level where you have to run towards the screen. But for some reason in Crash, it just freaking worked. I kind of hate those stages in games. Every time that stage is made, I'm like, I don't care about the thing behind me. I only care about which way I'm trying to go. What, am I supposed to memorize it before? I've never done it before? Like, ugh.
It might have been in Crash 3, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped or something like that. But you had to play, you were the sister and you were riding on the polar bear and it was on ice. And I remember, you know, ice, everything's slippery. And it's like, just let me control the character. I've played 35 levels up to this point. Now all of a sudden I'm on ice and I can't control the bear anymore. And it's just like, you're like a little kid and you're just like, come on, man, let me control the bear.
Those damn ice stages in old games. Oh my God. It's like, we're going to make it more slippery and then it's going to be harder to control. Well, now I got to relearn how to play the game.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing? But, you know, that's just kind of the Wild West. But I kind of said something about demo discs earlier and we were kind of talking about that. And man, the demo discs like the demos, man, just being able to like play a game before you even got to play a game. That was crazy.
Yeah. And to me, this is so stupid now looking back on it, but it was like the way that you got the demo disc was a thing of itself. You know, I don't know how you guys got it. I remember the old Pizza Hut demo disc. You'd go get pizza and then you would get the demo disc, or you would get it from a magazine or something like that. But like that was a part of the experience, was like, okay, we're going to go get pizza. You get a demo disc and then you come back and then you would play the demo disc just as long as you would play like a full length game. You know, you said, you'd play the same level over and over again, but you didn't care because it was just like, this is awesome.
They just felt like this thing of magic that it had all these different games on it and you could try them all out. I mean, the one that my older brother would play so many times was Parappa the Rappa, which I mentioned that to somebody today And they were like, what? And I was like, it's this weird rhythm game where you rap. And like, he played the crap out of that.
That was the perfect. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it other than saying that was the perfect like PlayStation experience. You know what I mean? It's like nothing about that game made any sense. You know, the design choices were so crazy. It's like, okay, we're gonna make 2D characters in a 3D world that are like cardboard cutouts, and the main character is a dog, and he's a rapper, and he wears a beanie, and it's just like it was just like whatever, man, just have fun. Who cares?
Man, though, like that game was so crazy. But I mean, I remember playing like. I never had the game, but I remember playing Legend of Legaea's demo. There was a couple demos that I think came with some of the other big games. Like you had the demo disc in with it. Final Fantasy games and stuff like that would be on a demo. And just like like you were talking about earlier, which I still think is really funny, getting a demo disc in a magazine. That's just crazy, I feel like today. Like you would get like a freaking disc. Like, I'll take a pizza and one of those demo discs, please.
Yeah, I do remember. I have a very distinct memory of the official PlayStation magazine in the grocery store, and it would be like, oh, I got to get this. You're getting that month's issue because you want to read about games and you're interested about what games are coming out. But they all came with demo discs, so it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna get the magazine. Hey, Mom, let me get this magazine. And it's like, yeah, okay. And it's like, got me a demo disc.
I did it. Yeah, I really just wanted the demo disc.
Yeah,
it's free in the demo.
yeah, it's free in the $10 magazine.
Oh my God. But I'm just like thinking about like gaming magazines in general. Today you can like watch a video on how to do stuff. Or you can watch a video about what's coming out, getting stuck in a game, and then you get this like gaming magazine. It's like, this is how you do it. And then you go to do it, and then it wouldn't work because their information was wrong. Yeah. Yes. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I remember very distinctly there was a magazine on Final Fantasy Tactics. There's the infamous, boss, save. Yeah, and if you save and you can't beat the middle boss, there's no going back. You've erased your save. In the magazine, it was, oh yeah, go ahead and save. It's no big deal. Well, me as a little kid, I got it messed up for a very long time. I never beat Final Fantasy Tactics because I was like, this stupid magazine told me how to beat the game wrong.
And like finding the Game FAQs website as a kid, and websites in general weren't really like that rampant until probably about the PlayStation time period. Being able to get on there and find somebody's actual like meticulous notes, you'd have to like read through to get to the part where you're at. Like, where am I? I think I'm right here. Then you just have to remember it. Of course, we would try to print them out. My mom would be like, you're using up all the printer ink. What are you printing? None of your business.
Well, you had to go into the computer room back in the day. The one room that had a computer in it. And you'd look it up and then it'd be, well, I hope the phone doesn't ring while I'm trying to get this. The FAQs for Parappa the Rapper.
Yeah, dude, I remember running up and down because you came to our house when we were kids. And like, I remember running all the way up from the basement to like read something on there and then run all the way back down, run all the way back. My mom's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I didn't want to waste printer ink, so I left it on.
Yeah.
And that time period was just so crazy, freaking. This is kind of off topic a little bit for us right now, but like yo-yos were real popular and stuff. The other thing that got really popular, I kind of attribute it to this game, but it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater. We were all into skating and stuff, but you remember playing that freaking game?
Oh yeah. That was, well, in the town where I lived in, it got so popular that a skate shop opened up in a town of, I would say probably 200 people. Obviously went out of business very quickly because turns out teenagers don't have a ton of expendable income. But that game, it was so cool. Again, going back to that word, it was so cool that it was like, well, I want to do that. That guy did a cool trick. I want to go do it. And so then it became, okay, well, now I want to skateboard and jump off of the stairs in front of the school. It opened up an entire almost like sport of extreme sports, just trying to see who could do dumb stuff.
Obviously the physics were like not realistic, but that was the best part about it. Just like flying off a freaking half pipe into the fucking stratosphere and listening to freaking Power Man 5000. I would have never even knew who that band was. And it introduced me to like so many different kinds of music, songs that scene, I guess it was really popular. I was just a kid though, I didn't know how to do any of that. And I tried to skate, it wasn't any good, but there was like tons of other like X-Force games. I I think you were mentioning something earlier before we even started. You were talking about, was it Dave Mirra or whatever?
So, obviously Tony Hawk was kind of like the gateway drug into extreme sports games for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tony Hawk was a skateboard, and then anybody who was a professional athlete, they needed their own game after that. And so I got really into Cool Boarders, which is kind of like the snowboarding version of that style of game. But then, like you said, I believe the game is called Dave Mirra's Pro BMX or something like that.
I think it was Freestyle, but yeah.
Freestyle BMX, that's what it was, yes. And so imagine Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, same concept. You get dropped into a skate park, and instead of getting points for tricks, you got points for how severe your crash was. And so you would be going over these ramps trying to do these crazy tricks, but instead of trying to land the tricks, you were trying to crash them. And the best, this is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. You had the warehouse, like you said, all the iconic music and all of that stuff. I have this burned in my brain of Dave Mirra going over a ramp, and there was a train, and you would do a trick, and then you'd land, and you'd get hit by a train, and you'd get the high score and win the game. And it was just like, wait, what?
Dude, and you were talking about snowboarding earlier, and I'm pretty sure snowboarding got popular because of all that kind of stuff. I think it was, if I recall, and this, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that snowboarding was being invented when we were that age. And they were getting yelled at on slopes and stuff. But it's just so interesting because my snowboarding game wasn't on the PlayStation. It was on the 64, and it was that 1080 game. And I don't know why. We just loved that game. I remember when we finally figured it out and we got good at it, and I was like, this game's just fucking awesome.
Yeah. And it's like you said, I think it's the hyper stylized aspect of it. The gravity is obviously turned off. You're flying all over the place. You're doing these crazy things that you could never do in real life. That's what video games used to be. It wasn't hyper realism. It was hyper stylization. And so you're doing tricks that could never be done. And like you said, especially when it's paired with a sport that's kind of new and cool and people don't really know the rules of snowboarding, you're doing all this crazy stuff. And you're just like, that's so sick. And it is sick.
I recently done a run through Sonic games, and Sonic Adventure 1 had a snowboarding scene. And I think that would have been around that time period. I don't know. I don't remember when those games, I wasn't a Sega boy. I didn't have a Dreamcast. So I don't know when that came out exactly, but just thinking about how many games in that time period, even Final Fantasy VII had a snowboarding scene.
The infamous, the worst thing that could ever, no spoilers, the worst thing that could ever happen. And then it's like, well, let's go snowboarding.
Hey, Cloud.
Okay.
We'll meet you at the bottom. Here's a snowboard.
Yeah.
Hey, what? Why are you guys going down the slope? Quiet.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's the saddest moment in gaming history with the most exciting music playing, and you're snowboarding, and it's just tears streaming down your face. The polar bears.
Yeah, you get the balloons. What do you mean? What do you mean get the balloons?
Get the balloons. Yeah, I forgot about that too.
Fucking mini games. Damn
don't
it.
Hit the trees. Don't hit the trees. Grab the balloons. And you're just sitting there going like, why are we doing this? It's fun. This is how you deal with grief.
Man, some of the other games that I really liked that were on the Super Nintendo that made their way onto the PlayStation. So the Mega Man X series were super influential to me. Those were core memories for me. I remember buying that cart for the Super Nintendo and playing Mega Man X and being introduced to metal, because that wasn't really listened to in our house. Metal as we knew it, like Metallica and stuff. We didn't listen to that kind of music in our house. Being exposed to that Mega Man, I was always like, man, the soundtrack is my favorite. And I didn't know that I liked metal then. And I still didn't know until I was in college. Freaking Mega Man X4, that game was so incredible. It was the first game where you truly could just be like, I'm going to do the campaign as Zero. That blew my mind, dude. I grew my hair out and stuff because of that. Zero was so freaking cool. The boss rush, just the different play style. It was just so much fun. I've been a Mega Man fan, since then, and had played classic Mega Man games 1 and 2. X was really, that's the game that spin-off series was what sucked me into Mega Man all the way. I didn't really play Mega Man 8 until later. And you said that you had played a bunch of Mega Man 8?
Yeah, that was kind of my not introduction to Mega Man, but that was the one that stuck to me as, the one that I latched onto and thought was really cool. Exactly how you said, I think the thing that made Mega Man games so fun and so engaging was they have some of the best opening sequences in games where it's like, okay, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? Like something happens, something blows up. And keep in mind, this is in the span of maybe 30 seconds.
Right.
They tell the entire story in 30 seconds and it's like, oh, that guy's really cool. I want to be him, and then you spend the entire game fighting bad guys, chasing this guy. And then eventually you find out who they are and what they're about. But yeah, I think the Mega Man games, maybe a little bit less so some of the other ones, but it's that iconic character that everybody latches onto and you're just like, man, that's cool. And like you said,
Blue Bomber.
The soundtrack was cool. Soundtrack was cool. I remember the villains being really cool, thinking that the villains had cool powers, and then you get those powers. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah, some of the best game design I think of all time.
Well, we hadn't really talked about it until just now, but I just was thinking about it. How those other games that we were just talking about, those were like 3D games. But the Mega Man games were still holding on to the pixel art. And that was, Capcom was very good at pixel art then. I mean, Mega Man X4 and Mega Man 8, really incredible looking models. We talk about graphics then. We would have been like, this game has good graphics because these are the graphics, these pixels. That is sick looking. Wow, like the 3D games that we were talking, and this isn't even like the order of how I played these games that we're talking about, but not really is important to just what we're talking about. But I don't know, man, those two games were just, I didn't really care too much for 8 and 7 in the Mega Man series. X4 was incredible. Again, I didn't really care too much about X5 and X6, not as much as I liked 4. Just 4. After playing 1, 2, and 3 in the X series, 4 was incredible. It's like, wow. I still go back and want to play that game because it's so much fun. Of course, now we've got modern examples, but another spinoff that came from Mega Man that was on the PlayStation was Mega Man Legends. Did you say that you played the game? I can't remember.
No. So yeah, my only experience with Mega Man were kind of the mainline series, that 7, 8. Games that you talked about. Right. I think this is kind of more your area of expertise. Oh, yeah. What did you think about Mega Man Legends?
Oh my God. Like that game was so crazy. Looking back on that game, if you like Mega Man, you have to go back and play this game because it's like it's a 3D game. You move around in 3D spaces. You can go to town and it's a role-playing game where you have like all these like tasks that you need to do for people. And it's kind of set in like, I don't know, like the future? Yeah. If that makes even any sense in Mega Man. Like it's already the future, right? And they're like, okay, so future? I don't know. So anyway, the Mega Man character and role are in it. And they are like treasure hunters that go into these like vaults, pull out like old tech and do stuff with it. The main game, like when you're in town, it's real happy. The music's really good. There's even like a system where you can be good or bad and like it changes your overall appearance to be like darker in color if you like go around kicking dogs or kicking vending machines and doing bad stuff. And and like so then you go down to these vaults and the tone of the game changes like intensely. It's like all of a sudden like this survival horror game, almost like Dead Space, where you're walking around in like almost pitch black in some of these areas, and then you just will hear robots that are the monsters moving around, and then you'll see the glowing eyes, and then it'll shoot out from around the corner, and it's like, brah, and you're like, oh shit, and like you get your arm attachments, so like that's how that worked. Like you would get these like different arm attachments and like shoot, and then eventually you could get these like roller skate attachments for your legs, and you could like shoot across the room really fast. I mean, it was an incredible game, and you're doing yourself disservice if you like Mega Man and you haven't played Legends. It's just like, I mean, that was such a wild game, and they've never made another one since. They made I think they made 2. I don't remember. And then there was like another spin-off within that spin-off of the Tron character and her little Lego men, because she had these little Lego men that it was weird. It's a cool game. You ever get a
Yeah.
chance to play it? I mean, to me, that's an iconic memory. That's a really powerful memory, in my opinion. One of the greatest games. Shifting all the gears here, because that was something that I was really passionate about. I think you were talking about Time Splitters too. I didn't really play that game that much, and I was like really interested because I've not even gone back and looked at it, but I remember people like talking about it so much. I was kind of wondering what you were thinking about it.
This is kind of my version of Halo, right? That game became very, very popular when we were in high school and college and all of that stuff. Time Splitters to me is the epitome of where my humor comes from. The best way to describe it is imagine somebody who is a film buff and they said, I want to make a first-person shooter. And that's what this is. It's parodies of popular films strewn throughout time, and you play a member of the Time Police. They're these creatures, I can't remember their names. They're the Time Splitters, who go through time and they steal these time crystals so that they can travel through time and steal time. You're a member of the Time Police and you go through these different time periods. Some of those time periods could be the Blade Runner universe.
Oh my God.
Some of them could be Dirty Harry. But instead of it being the the iconic movies that you're thinking of, instead of it being James Bond 007, it's Austin Powers. The scene that stands out, and this will be in my head forever. It's the climactic moment. The heroes are winning. They figured out the twist of the game, and they're getting ready to go up to their boss. They hit the button on the elevator to go tell their boss, like, we figured it out. We know how to win. And they're waiting for the elevator. And it's like, all right, yeah, we did it. They hit the button. Yeah. All right. As soon as the elevator gets here, we got him. We got him. It's just stupid humor like that. It's like you're sneaking up on these bad guys, and it's the old classic game, so all of the bad guys all look the same. And then they're talking about like why do you think boss makes us all wear the same uniform? Conversations that the NPCs have. Oh my gosh, man. Those games were so fun. I mean, that's, the snarkiness, the humor, all of that. It comes from games like that where they, maybe they weren't the most popular game of all time, but they had so much fun making it. You can tell they had fun making it. And that humor just spills out into the characters. And it's so fun.
To me, like any graphics at that time looked incredible. We would sit there and talk about, this looks realistic. This looks like real life. I remember saying that about PlayStation 1 graphics and just being totally awestruck at 3D. And we're not even talking about the 64, but thinking about Mario 64, just being like, wow, it's completely in 3D. Coming from fucking Super Mario World, like it was wild. I will say, we're talking about like games that are like movies and games that were like really powerful. I mean, everybody played Metal Gear Solid, and I don't know how we got our copy. Somehow we got a copy. Somebody gave it to us. They were like, this game's too good for me to keep. You have it. So we got it and we played it, and we were like, oh man, that was an incredible game. I got to play it again. We beat it a couple times, and then we were like inviting people over, and then like, you take it. You get to keep it now and play it. And then they would give it back to us. So then we would give it to somebody else. It always came back to us. I mean, that game was crazy. I never played a game like that with all that stealth, the whole like, whose footprints are these and stuff like that. And having the enemies be reacted to what you were doing, but then go back to their patrol if they can't find you. What?
I think that was the first time, and granted, keep in mind, we're talking about a PlayStation 1 game here.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time where I realized cinematography and video games are synonymous. Cinematic experience while playing a game, that was Metal Gear Solid. I mean, that's what introduced me into that style, even that interest, that hobby. It's you can't describe. We're talking about some of our favorite games growing up. The jump in quality of that game was so high, you thought that it was real. I mean, you thought, like you said, it was an experience that you wanted to share with other people. Because it was so good, you wanted to see how they reacted to it, just like you would for your favorite movie. You would say, hey, watch this and tell me what you think. You play this and tell me what you think. That's what happened with Metal Gear Solid.
And it was a short enough game that we could invite people over and just be like, all right, we're going to beat this game. They're like, you're going to what?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be like halfway. I remember being halfway through that game, and there's an area where you literally have to change discs just to move back and forth between these two areas. because it was a multi-disc game, The other thing that was really wild about that game, like if you just, I don't know, if you had like a freaking copy that wasn't yours or you somehow illegally got it, I don't know. Or if you just lost the jewel case, there was a like the only way to call Meryl and to get her number to call her on the codec, the head radio, was to look on the back of the jewel case.
Yeah.
And the game tells you to do that. Colonel tells you, go look on the back of the jewel case. And I remember searching through the inventory in the game, like, what the hell is this guy fucking talking about?
The jewel case, yeah.
And whoever we got the game from told us, no, on the back of the game.
Yeah.
And we were like, what? What? That's so crazy.
There were so many things about that game that blew my mind. I mean, I didn't know that you could do that in a video game. The soundtrack was amazing. You had brought this up. Something as simple as you walking in snow and the guards can see your footprints. That was a PlayStation 1 game. Games that don't do that. Yeah. It's insane to me that it was there. There were different cutscenes depending on whether you picked certain items up or not. The order that you would do the mission in would determine certain cutscenes. It was just incredible the way that it would play out. I mean, it was insane.
Well, and the voice acting was so powerful. I'm just like obsessing over the characters because the voice acting was so good. And voice acting in a game was crazy. Why can they talk? How can they talk? This is really badass. I can't believe they're talking about the back of the jewel disc and stuff. I'm thinking about something that's not really done now because, just the way we get gaming media now is like, I mean, half the time it's digital. You would get like the booklet too. There would be so much information in the booklet about the game and the story. We were talking about Mega Man, and a lot of the story of Mega Man was in those booklets. And you would read that. And then you would play the game, or you would play the game and then be like, I wonder what that's about. And then you go look at it. I remember staring at the pictures in little booklets. That's a cool drawing. I really like that drawing, or try to draw it, Metal Gear Solid was crazy. And that also was the first time that we looked up the names of the voice actors. I knew who Cam Clark was. That guy is so cool. And David Hayter, I'm like, oh man, no one could be him beside that guy, I don't know. Like that was a wild time. Metal Gear Solid. I mean, we could probably spend a whole night talking about that game.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Talking about soundscapes and just like environments and things like that makes me think of the horror games of the time. The first horror game that I played, and I didn't know if I liked them or not. Now I know. I'm like, I don't want to play that. That's too scary. But is Resident Evil 2. I remember my brother, he was like, I'll play as Leon and you play as the girl. And I was like, I don't want to be the girl. And then I was like, I love the girl. Like, she's so cool. Yeah. And like, that game was crazy. Tank controls. Of course, we were in the time period of how do we do a camera in a 3D game.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that probably Resident Evil had a better handle on it because they didn't have to like decide where it goes. They would just like, from this angle this room is, from this angle this room is, I see. And I didn't play Resident Evil 1, and you had mentioned that you had played Resident Evil 1. What was your experience with your first horror game, or was that your first horror game?
It was, yeah. So that age period of gaming, that was back when I still wasn't technically old enough to own that game. And so I would play it when I would go over to friends' houses or cousins' houses or something like that, Yeah. Like, hey, you got that Resident Evil game? Yeah, I got it. Put it in. Let's play it, Yeah. And this is the perfect order of going from Metal Gear Solid to Resident Evil, which is that style of camera. Now it's obviously outdated. It's like you called it, the tank controls. That was synonymous with horror because it wasn't, nowadays you got Dark Souls and all of that stuff. Oh, this game's really hard. Back then, you were being chased by one zombie in a hallway. You were fighting the controller. You were fighting the camera. Yeah. The way that you aimed your gun, you had 3 options: up, middle, down. And those were your aiming options for shooting your gun. I was genuinely scared for my character's life because I was piloting this person, and I was like, I can't see, and it's like, I'm a little kid, oh my gosh. The zombie like craze, that I don't think it's there so much anymore, but that started it for me, was like the idea of zombies being this amazing thing that I wanted to watch movies about it. I wanted to watch, or play games, zombie games and stuff like that. That Resident Evil got me into that because it's the polar opposite of Metal Gear Solid. The voice actors were cheesy. That B horror, where it's like the camera cuts and it's like, oh my gosh, his arm got ripped off. This absolute you're half of the time you're smiling and laughing, and the other time you're like, oh my gosh, that was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
I never thought about how the voice acting probably really broke up the tension. I never really thought about it. That's a really good point. And yeah, I kind of forgot that it was voice acted. Obviously it was. Also really crazy. The zombies, to me, were terrifying. I was so afraid of them. It was like a percentage that you would shoot them, which I didn't understand when I first played it. I was always just unloading my gun into every zombie. I have to kill him because it'll get to somebody else in my little kid brain. It wasn't until I watched some friends play through it that I found out that it was optional to kill everything but the bosses. And I was like, wait, you can just run past them? And they're like, yeah, it's not even scary. It's like this. You just run like this. And I'm just like, what do you mean? You just ran past it? Like I would get such fear getting too close to it. Like it could have damaged me. And I only got 3 heals and only 2 little ink ribbons to save my game. Like talk about hardcore,
I think those games were the masters of making a villain or, an enemy feel like a boss even when they weren't.
Right.
Obviously you have more experience with Resident Evil 2. I was more Resident Evil 1. But I remember when I think they were called lickers, the dudes that like crawl on the ceiling. That was a boss. And it's like, you don't have to kill them if you don't want to, like you said. And it's like, what do you mean? How are you getting by them? And it's like, well, just walk slowly. And I remember like as close to the TV as you could possibly be and just being like, boop, boop, boop. You accidentally press the button too hard, and then you jog for a second, and it's the old sound effect, of like clang, 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 and all of the lickers look at you, and it's like, run!
Oh my God. Yeah, see, in Resident Evil 2, there was also differences between playing as Claire and Leon. Claire got different weapons, and one of the weapons she got was the grenade launcher, and you could shoot acid rounds. And I don't know if this is true. I don't remember. I haven't gone back to verify. The game terrifies me. The acid rounds are what I used on lickers to kill him, because it was like, it kills him right now. Yeah. And they just like melt. And I'm like, why doesn't acid kill all of the monsters, though? It would kill me.
Well, again, it's that logic, video game logic of, well, you use the acid grenade launcher on the lickers. Well, why doesn't it kill the regular zombie? Well, you're supposed to use the Magnum on the, or whatever, the 9mm or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, you can't talk about Resident Evil without talking about Silent Hill for at least a second. And coming from Resident Evil into Silent Hill, thinking it's like the same game. I mean, it's not. And I really just want to talk about it for a second. Walking into a room in Silent Hill versus walking into a room in Resident Evil. Like, you would walk into a room in Resident Evil, you hear a zombie, you're like, oh shit, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to shoot him with my gun. Had a gun in Silent Hill. And so you walk in, I remember walking into this like classroom, and there was like a noise, and I was like, what the hell was that? That game was so scary sound-wise. It was terrifying. This little ghost kid runs by, and you're like, ah, boom, boom, boom. And you start shooting it, and nothing's happening. Because it's not an enemy. It's not interactable. It just scared the piss out of you, though. And you just wasted 3 or 4 rounds, which are just like in Resident Evil. The rounds are limited. And you're like, oh, shit.
Well, if you want to say Resident Evil is campy and B horror and stuff like that, Silent Hill is terror. It's objectively terrifying. The difference between being a member of STARS, trained fighting force, and then you're just playing as a normal person in the Silent Hill games. And you're right. You felt that helplessness of, I can't do anything to these enemies. I'm just going to run away.
Yeah. Fuck this. Fuck that thing.
I'm out. Yeah, I Silent Hill terrified. You were talking about Resident Evil scared you. Silent Hill was the first one, it's a horror game that I put down, and I was like, I'm not playing this until I'm older. This is too much. I think those are some of the greatest horror games of all time. Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3. Probably some of the best of all time.
I mean, and we already know that they shaped future games like Dead Space and stuff like, and just masters of their craft, even at the time on the PlayStation 1. Utilizing the graphics in the system to like really create that horror. Oh, we can't render at a distance? No problem. It's now a mechanic. Stop!
Now all of a sudden it's oppressive fog and see 5 feet in front of your face. You're now scared of the limitation that was placed upon you.
Dude, and just controlling your fear factor with the stupid radio. oh shit, dude, my heart rate would just go up hearing that noise. Like, ugh. And then you start walking slow with the gun. It's nothing like a dog or something.
Yeah.
Dog
Jeez,
enemies.
man.
Talking about dog enemies on the freaking old games. Like, who's training these dogs to beat my ass?
God, man. They jump like they're mountain lions, flying across the screen. Yeah, I was terrified of the dogs.
I always love that story you tell about your first experience with Resident Evil 1. Cousin telling you to open that door. I love hearing that story.
So if you've never played Resident Evil 1, the opening cinematic is the members of STARS are being chased by zombies. You obviously can't see it because of the cuts in the camera, but they're being chased into this mansion. They slam the door behind them. They look around. They realize, the team split up. They're messed up. I'm like, oh, wow, this game's awesome. But, you start the game. You're in this big open room and there's nothing there. And so I was like, what do I do? And my cousin, as all cousins and friends should do, being a jerk, they go, oh, turn around, open the front door. I'm like, okay. Turn around, open the front door, and a zombie Doberman jumps in, scares me so bad that I throw the controller. And then, of course, the zombie dog is in the room and, ready to fight you. And I'm just like, what the heck?
Oh, my God.
It's the scariest thing. It was the scariest thing of all time. Yeah.
Also, very cruel of your cousin, but
yes.
Now we're going to hit you with the Midwest goodbye here because it's been like 30 minutes. Good place to wrap up, but I know I'm not done talking about this topic and PlayStation 1. So we're going to keep rambling, but this is end of part 1 here.